You borrowed money from my business partner, Herr Strauss. You owe him, you took the money. He wants it back, what's not to understand? Where's our money?
I don't have it.
Sell your place.
We already owe more than it's worth.
Then sell your wife, or your family, or something. We ain't your idea of charity. Is that clear?
For everyone unfamiliar, this is a clip from Red Dead Redemption 2, in which the main character, Arthur Morgan, gets infected with tuberculosis. This game takes place in the 1890s, where you play as Arthur Morgan, one of the few remaining outlaws in the American frontier. Arthur and his gang kill, cheat, and steal for their money, and engage in any activity that will make them more. One of the shady ways that the gang made money was through loan sharking people who couldn't get loans from the bank. In this clip, Arthur beats a man for not having the money on time. Unbeknownst to Arthur the player, this man has tuberculosis, and in this clip, you can see the man coughing up blood in Arthur's face. This is the moment that Arthur becomes infected with tuberculosis, the infection that will take his life. As the player, you carry on with heists and robberies, unaware of the tuberculosis growing inside Arthur. If you are keen, you will notice Arthur developing a cough. One day, Arthur's cough gets so bad that he falls off his horse and is brought into a doctor by a bystander.
Thank you. Now, what's wrong? I mean, what appear to be the symptoms?
Well, I think you've heard them. I'm coughing.
Is there any blood?
Sometimes.
It's not good news.
I guess that.
You got tuberculosis. I'm really sorry for you, son. It's a hell of a thing.
What do you mean?
You're real sick. It's a progressive disease, and you'll be... Now, the best thing is rest, and getting somewhere warm and dry, and taking it easy. Now, is that possible?
Here, it sounds as if the doctor is going to tell Arthur that he will be dead soon, but catches himself. He knew by listening to Arthur's lungs, along with his testimony that he sometimes coughs up blood, that Arthur was suffering from tuberculosis, and more than likely, he would not survive. I chose to research TB for this presentation because of Arthur Morgan's story, and also because of an assignment I did earlier this semester about TB. I found on the World Health Organization's website that TB was the second leading infectious killer worldwide, only second to COVID, with 1.5 million deaths in 2020 alone. The bacteria that causes tuberculosis, Mycobacterium tuberculosis, was first discovered in 1882 by Dr. Robert Koch, and at this point in history, 1 in every 7 deaths was caused by TB. According to the CDC, TB had infected humans for all of history, and in the 1700s, TB was referred to as the White Plague due to the paleness of the infected. So what are Mycobacterium tuberculosis? Well, Mycobacterium tuberculosis are mycobacteria which contain a unique substance in cell wall called mycolic acid, which contains lipids. Mycobacteria resist decolorization by acid and are therefore categorized as acid-fast bacteria. They gram stain poorly. Instead, Ziehl-Neelsen stain are used to stain them. Tuberculosis is an obligate aerobic bacillus, which means it requires oxygen to grow. This is why TB thrives in the lungs. TB is a facultative intracellular organism, which means it can live in other cells. Remember in lecture when we learned about macrophages and how they're white blood cells whose purpose is to kill pathogens? Well, the TB likes to get inside these white blood cells, live inside them, and then kill them. These white blood cells are unable to kill tuberculosis. In the lungs, tuberculosis inhabits the alveoli where diffusion takes place. Most of the time, the infection occurs in the lower lobes of the lungs. However, reactivation infections of tuberculosis are usually found in the upper lobes. Tuberculosis can also be found in the brain, where it would cause the brain to swell. We would call this meningitis. After getting infected with TB, it could lie dormant in your lungs for weeks up to years, like it did with Arthur Morgan. Early signs and symptoms of TB would include fever, weight loss, and night sweats, and may progress into coughing up blood, chest pain, or general sense of fatigue. It is most common in children, the elderly, and the immunocompromised, such as HIV and chemo patients. And it is most common in developing nations where diagnostics and doctors are scarce. Tuberculosis is commonly diagnosed through TB skin tests. If you work in healthcare, you're probably familiar with doing these annually. After a few days, you get this skin test examined, and if it looks positive, you'll need a chest x-ray. If the chest x-ray looks positive, you will have to give a sample of your sputum to stain for acid-fast bacilli. So you were unfortunate and you got tuberculosis. What do you do now? Well, your doctor will probably prescribe you isoniazid. Isoniazid's mode of activation is inhibiting lipid and DNA synthesis, which results in the inhibition of cell wall synthesis, which then kills the mycobacteria. And you could be taking this stuff up to 6 months depending on what your doctor says. TB prevention means keeping your immune system healthy through good eating habits and a healthy, active lifestyle. It also means wearing a mask around TB patients and a respirator. There's also a vaccine for TB called the BCG vaccine, but it's more effective at preventing TB in the brain than it is at preventing TB of the lungs, and it is not very common in the United States. The American Society for Microbiology notes agar-based media incorporating green malachite and Middlebrook broths or solid media are recommended as the gold standard for isolation, culture, and definitive diagnosis of tuberculosis. For Arthur, tuberculosis was his death sentence, and although it did inspire him to turn his life around and help others, he could not escape his fate and ends up passing away after months of deterioration. Thank you everybody for watching. If you want to respond to me, my questions are: number 1, will TB replace COVID as the number 1 infectious killer? And number 2, have you ever heard of the BCG vaccine? And why do many people not have it?